Thank you so much, Nancy. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. So yes, it is my great pleasure to be out here to share with you a little bit about the history and background of the Westmoreland Museum of American Art that is in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, here in Western PA. And then also some things about our collection, how it's changed over the years and expanded, and then also some exhibitions and things that are happening now and some very exciting things that are coming up. So without further ado, as Nancy mentioned, I've been at the Westmoreland for over 5 years now. And the places I've worked before that she listed are more traditional history museums and historic sites, because that is my background. And she mentioned Bushy Run Battlefield, which some of us might be familiar with. That's in, Jeanette, that's in Westmoreland County, just down the road from the Westmoreland. That's where I had my very first internship and where I decided to go into the museum field when I was 19 years old, when I was home for the summer. And I just haven't looked back since. So that was about 25 years ago. So I wanted to just poll the room. I know Nancy has been to the Westmoreland. Who here has ever been to the Westmoreland? Oh, yay, wonderful. So that's like about half the room. That's fantastic. Who has been there more recently, like in the past year? Has anybody been there? How about the past 5 years? 5 years, all right. And then maybe longer than that, maybe closer to 10 years or more? Okay, all right. Well, a lot has happened at the Westmoreland in the past a little over 10 years now to have it look as it does today. And it has a really wonderful history, but I first just want to share our mission, vision, and values with you all that we are currently, that is driving the work that we do at the Westmoreland. So our mission is to offer meaningful and engaging cultural experiences that build community and inspire creativity, new ideas, and action through the power of art. And our big vision within this mission is to strive to connect an ever-expanding audience to American art. And we follow these wonderful values. We are welcoming, we are inspiring, we are innovative, collaborative, and authentic. And as you'll see on our museum, it literally says welcome. And one of the things I'm most proud about that is the feedback we hear again and again is what a welcoming place we are. Because our museums, for a long time, were very intimidating to a lot of people. First, it was a very interesting transition for me coming from the history museum world to the art museum world, because people don't think they have to be a historian to go to a history museum or a historic site, or a scientist to go to the science center or a science museum. But for a long time, a lot of people felt like they had to know a lot about art to go to an art museum. So we work very hard to break down that barrier and make people realize that art is important, art is for everyone. So a little bit about the history of the Westmoreland, which I really love, of course, as a historian, to share the history of the museum, and it's a really amazing history. This is a Greensburg resident, Mary Marchand Woods. And Mary Marchand Woods, actually, her family's property and where she lived was on the grounds where the Westmoreland stands today. Mary Marchand Woods' husband, he was a diplomat, a politician, and because of this, she got to travel the world. She got to see things during her lifetime that were just so awe-inspiring, including a lot of art. And this is actually a picture of her in Japan. Her husband was the ambassador to Japan as part of his career. And so, but she would always return to Greensburg, to her hometown. And Towards the end of her life, she felt that it was very important that there be an art museum in Greensburg for the community. She didn't really have an art collection herself, but she just knew this was going to be an important cultural institution, and she wanted to be able to facilitate that. So she left a very generous bequest, and the Marshawn Woods Foundation was formed in 1949. She passed away a few years later, so the planning was already in place, and she also donated the land that was her family's property as well. And they built the Westmoreland Museum of American Art, which at that point was called the Westmoreland County Museum of Art, even though it wasn't run by the county. It's always been part of that private foundation. And this is what the museum looked like. So as you can tell from that previous picture I showed you, the museum has expanded and changed quite a bit over the years. But it opened its doors in 1959. And I think a lot of you recognize this guy in this painting. This was the very first painting that entered the collection. So as the museum was being planned and built over those 10 years between 1949 and 1959, they started to build the collection as well. And that scope of collection changed over time also. So the museum went through many renovations. They added like a west wing in the 1960s. And then leading up to 2015, for about 2 years, the museum was totally closed to be renovated and expanded once again under the leadership of Judy O'Toole, who's now retired from the Westmoreland. And that's how we got this building that I showed you earlier. That giant cantilever wing that is coming out of our east wing of the museum. That not only allowed us to expand our collection, there was new storage in the basement and things like that, but it also allowed the museum, really for the first time, to bring in traveling exhibitions or to create exhibitions that would debut at the Westmoreland and also travel, although a little bit of that had been done before. So where we currently, our scope of collections expanded with this literal physical expansion. It used to go from about 1750 until 1950, but this allowed there to also increase collection to present day. So now we have contemporary artists from 1950 to present day in our collection as well. And that was really under the stewardship of Judy O'Toole, as I mentioned. And one of the paintings in our collection is actually of her. And this is a painting that was commissioned by a wonderful artist and photographer that Judy really loves, Mark Parrott. He is still very active in Pittsburgh, and we have a lot of his work in our collection. But let me go back to this painting of our pal George Washington. This is an absolutely stunning painting by Rembrandt Peale. The Peale family were a Pennsylvania family of artists. The patriarch was Charles Wilson Peale, and Charles Wilson Peale had actually painted the first ever portrait of George Washington in 1772, I believe. And it was actually it was before George Washington was officially in the Continental Army, and he actually was portrayed in his uniform from the French and Indian War when he was part of the British Army in charge of the Virginia Regiment during that time. So this was not done from life by Rembrandt. Some of you may be familiar with the amazing Peale family. Charles Wilson Peale named many of his children after famous artists, and many of those children became artists and are included in our collection. Rembrandt Peale painted this based on a painting that his father had done of George Washington. This was done after Washington had died in 1799, around 1830 is when this was done. But Rembrandt Peale had known Washington when he was younger and had actually painted a portrait when he was, a very young artist because he was, familiar with the Peale family. So you'll notice a theme when I show you many of these artworks to give you an idea of the scope of our collection and all of the different categories where we collect. We have a strong emphasis on Pennsylvania artists, as well as Southwestern Pennsylvania art and artists represented in the collection as well. But we now, over the years, have really honed in that we are a museum of American art. And we are actually the only museum that focuses just on American art in the whole region, which is a really special thing that I get to share with folks. So you'll see here, this is a more traditional historical sculpture. This is Bacchanal Rus by Malvina Cornell Hoffman, a beautiful bronze sculpture that shows this incredible movement. Hoffman was very inspired by ballet and some of the more modern ballets that were appearing around the time that she created this work. But then you'll also see we have sculptures of contemporary artists to sort of show that range as well. This is a stunning work made out of wood called Cloud. It was created in 2010, and it was made by Pittsburgh artist Thaddeus Mosley, who actually just passed away, I believe just shy of his 100th birthday very recently. And so you can see his works really represented all over Pittsburgh in the New Arts Landing Park. There's a lot of his work there, which is really exciting. And the August Wilson Center has a lot of his works. And I was very fortunate to get to meet him just before he passed. He came to one of our exhibition openings, and I was so excited to tell him that I had seen a big show that he had that was up in the Seattle Art Museum in the past couple of years. Here's another famous Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania art family. These are works not by Andy Warhol, but by his brother Paul Warhola and his mom Julia Warhola. So you can see Paul and Andy is a photo that he used as inspiration for this huge piece that's a photo of him and his younger brother Andy Warhol. And then he actually uses chicken feet as a stamp. to sort of create that like pop art effect around it. And, you know, a lot of people sort of forget that Andy Warhol's mom was also an artist, and she did this Holy Cat series. So these are some fun regional artists in our collection as well. We have a wonderful folk art collection too. And folk art is really, you know, works that are done by self-taught artists. Sometimes it's functional art. And we have one of the most extensive fraktur collections, which are these very ornate documents that Swiss and German immigrants brought to this region really starting in the 18th century. And some of ours date to the 18th century and move throughout the 20th century as well. And this is actually one that was from Mary Marchand Wood's family. And what is really exciting about the full collection of frakturs that we have is most of them are from not just Pennsylvania, but from Westmoreland County, which is very, very exciting. And kids really love to learn about history, you know, through this form of art. And then the sort of another spectrum of folk art is our jig pig, which was created by Norman Scott Butch Quinn in 1993, sort of made out of found objects. So really sort of showing you that range of, and sort of everything in between we have in terms of folk art too. We have lots of still lifes, again, these more traditional ones like this vase of flowers by Adelman, and then this wonderful oranges and avocados, a little more like modern, a little more abstract, that's by Doris Lee. And our original and most long-standing curator, Barbara Jones, retired a few years ago, and her swan song was she got to organize this wonderful show of this artist, Doris Lee, and got to write a catalog, and it was mentioned in the New York Times, and, you know, we were so happy for Barbara that got to be, you know, sort of her final exhibition to have such accolades, being able to talk about the wonderful artist, Doris Lee. And then we have a lot of different sort of decorative arts things, again, showing a more modern and contemporary piece with a more traditional crazy quilt that's from about 1888 that was actually made just down the road from the Westmoreland by the Bouquet Lutheran Church Ladies' Aid. And then next to it is a 2003 work by Tina Williams Brewer, who's another Pittsburgh-based artist. Absolutely beautiful work. Hers is called Divine Plan, and she, is very active with the Westmoreland as well, and will do different quilting workshops and things like that. And then a work that really is something that's an area that's very, very associated with the Westmoreland. This is Country Road by George Hetzel, and he was one of the scalp level artists. So these Pittsburgh-based artists that would go out to like the Johnstown area to, escape often the like industrial city and be able to go and depict the very picturesque landscape of southwestern Pennsylvania. So that's just a little bit about our collection, and I'm going to tell you about some exhibitions going on that also will bring up some of the works that we're very well known for, as well as some traveling exhibitions that we are hosting as well. So let's figure out what's on at the Westmoreland. Now, we have a new curator. So Barbara Jones retired a few years ago. We are in between curators for a little bit, but we have a wonderful new curator, Nicole Lample, who comes to us via the San Francisco Bay Area. She did work at the New Orleans Museum of Art, and then also is working down in Augusta, Georgia. So we're really happy to have her, but in the meantime, we had to keep exhibitions going. And so I was able to work with our director, Dr. Sylvia Filippini Fantoni, and put my curator hat on that I wore when I worked at Fort Ligonier. And in honor of the semi-quincentennial, like this is a big celebratory year here for America, our 250th birthday, we were trying to decide what show to do. And we're very well known for our industrial art collection, and we decided let's bring these out and let's tell that story of the big steel era. And so we currently have an exhibition up this year called Steel Valley Visions: An American Legacy. Some of you might remember that many years ago, over 20 years ago now, our collection was organized into a traveling exhibition that was at the Westmoreland, but also traveled internationally to Poland and Germany. And it was called Born of Fire, The Valley of Work, organized by Barbara Jones. A wonderful exhibition. We still sell so many of these catalogs, and there's so much research done into it, working with folks like Ron Barra from Rivers of Steel. And so we were able to present not only some of those favorite key works that had been in Born of Fire, but also some of the works that had been donated or collected by the museum since Born of Fire, particularly ones that told the story of the people. We have a lot of the landscapes, but now we're able to tell more stories of the people. And so this exhibition is really organized into a few different sections. So we really talk about the land and the rivers. This is a fantastic print of early Pittsburgh from 1851 by Emil Bott. It's really tiny, but it is packed full of details. So really trying to explain why was it this place and this region that could foster such a huge industrial, really revolution here, and how did Pittsburgh become like the leading manufacturer of steel? And really it's because of the waterways. Water is a key ingredient in making steel, as well as the land. It had we still have incredible coal here, that bituminous coal that is perfect for making high quality steel. And this is a fantastic painting We have several by John Kane, another incredible Pittsburgh artist. He was a Scottish immigrant that came over, self-taught artist. The Heinz History Center in the past few years did a huge exhibition on him. We had him in an exhibition called Gate Crashers. And he not only was an amazing artist, but he also worked in the mills and he, worked in the rail yards. So he was an immigrant laborer and then was able to paint, the world around him during this very exciting time for Pittsburgh's history of that big steel era. And then he's also showing, these advances that had come about in the 19th century. So the waterways were great, but then steamships were invented. The railroads were connecting Pittsburgh to the rest of the country and then also to the world so that those, raw materials could come in and that finished steel could be, supplying basically all over the world. So the coal, of course, had to be extracted, and it wasn't the easiest job. So this is a really beautiful print, almost reminiscent of the American Gothic, famous American Gothic painting of the farmers, but it's this husband and wife, this coal miner, and you can see the coal tipple in the background and the patch town. So really showing what close proximity these workers who worked so hard day in and day out to be able to extract these raw materials, very dangerous work then and even today, to be able to literally fuel that industry with coal. And then a great contrast to this, but related to the coal industry, is our famous Tiffany window. This is the Thomas Lynch Tiffany window. And Thomas Lynch actually managed Henry Clay Frick's coal district, the Connellsville Coal District. He had a beautiful home in Greensburg that's still there. It's now like a bed and breakfast. But over time, this window that had been created for Thomas Lynch by Tiffany that depicted his ancestral home in Ireland. It got sold and was no longer in Greensburg. And then there was a great effort when it was finally going up for auction again to be able to have the museum acquire it and bring it back to Greensburg. And so it really, between this and this print, you sort of see the contrast between the manager's lifestyle and the worker's lifestyle, but both have those wonderful, immigrant or migrant connections as well. And then our absolutely stunning industrial landscapes. So I'm really just showing you a little sampling. You can go on our website to search through. Most of our collection has been digitized as well if you ever want to look through the variety of things in our collection, because there's really only a small part of it that's ever fully out at one time. This is called Industrial Scene Pittsburgh. It's from 1928 by Aaron Harry Gorson. He was a Lithuanian immigrant who emigrated to Philadelphia at first. He found a patron in his rabbi who saw great promise in him as an artist and was able to send him to art school. And then he sort of followed his patron to Pittsburgh, and he found great success painting these industrial scenes, particularly ones at night. But what's really interesting about any of these artists who are painting industrial scenes during the long height of the big steel era, throughout the first half of the 20th century, they could not paint en plein air. Can anyone figure out why that wasn't possible? So, Gorson would have to sketch this and then go back to his studio. Why do you think he could not paint en plein air, on the site, outside? The pollution, yes, the soot. The soot would, there's probably folks here that have memories even of what Pittsburgh's air once was, right? So it's a really interesting way of how artists were affected by that as well. And artists, in turn, are have different ways of depicting these. Sometimes it's just the power and might and the celebratory of the industry, whereas others might be, showing a little bit more of how smoky it was, and they might be a little more accurate. Although this one by Haley Lever, I think, is a very beautiful depiction with these pastel colors. So it's really interesting to learn about the artists themselves and sort of where they were from, why they were painting what they painted. And folks like Gorson, he found great success selling, his main clients were business people working in these industries. They'd have these hanging in their offices. And so he found great success doing that. And we have several of his works in our collection. And then, of course, the people, as I mentioned. So, really trying to tell that human story of all of the many people that contributed to the success of the Big Steel era. This is a very classic sort of Madonna figure, and it's actually called Madonna of the Mines. It's not just the men who are, part of this. The families are the ones living right amongst those catch towns by the mines, or right in those company towns built by the mills that just took up all the waterways in the Pittsburgh region. It shows not only the housing here, but also the church and the importance of the church, especially to immigrant communities, who are, it's their place to celebrate things like baptisms and weddings, but also a place where, they would have their funerals if there was a mine accident or something like that. And then this is one of my favorite works that we have. I just love the colors. Orange is one of my favorite colors, and I just love this depiction. It's called Portrait of Mike Kessel by the artist Francis Comperta. And Comperta, this was Comperta's brother-in-law who worked in the steel mills. And to me, it is just this very strong depiction celebrating the worker. It's from around 1938 to 1940. It's just one of my favorite, and just to me screams Big Steel era. Now, of course, we all know the Big Steel era had its rise and then its fall, although it still exists, of course. These industries still exist, but not in the ways that they once were. And artists were documenting the fall of the industry as well, particularly by the 1970s. And this is a photo by Mark Parrott, who I mentioned earlier, who had painted that really amazing portrait of Judy O'Toole to honor her retirement. And he took this picture this is the Eliza furnace that was right, across the river from downtown, right before they tore it down. So he took this photo in 1979, sort of knowing this was going to be a last look at it, that the landscape that had been changed by the industry was about to change again. And same with Erin L. DeRoy Gruber, another fantastic artist and photographer, that she took this, and she had a wonderful quote about, I believe this was the Duquesne Works, and she snuck onto the property knowing they were about to shut it down, and a security guard came up to her before she even had time to set up her camera and was like, get out of here. And she had time to get one shot off without having set up anything. But this was the shot she got. And this is how we got the name of the section for the exhibition. It is called End of an Era. However, the Big Steel era lives in anyone's memory that grew up here in Western Pennsylvania and will forever be a part of our identity as a region, right? And not only are so many people so proud of this history and these industries and the contribution that it made to American history, the American economy, but also to global history is not lost. And it continues to inspire artists to this day as well through its materials, through its actual history. This is a beautiful mixed media painting that we have called The Pioneer. It was done in 2020. We had an exhibition with the artist Stephen Towns, who's based in Baltimore. His artwork really focuses on African American history, the whole era of it. He does beautiful paintings and collages like this, but also incredible quilts. It was an absolutely beautiful show that we got to do, and we commissioned this work. He was doing archival research in West Virginia about Black coal miners in West Virginia, and was able to make this stunning piece. And it's really fun to look at the art and these images, but this is a perfect example of the power of art when you see it in person, because the black behind him, that's the coal, is actually done with mica, so it sort of glistens when you see it in person. The buttons are actual buttons, on the shirt, and it's just a really wonderful piece that we're so lucky to have in our collection. Along the same lines, the artist Joyce Ware-Perry created this enormous, this is like a diptych. It's 2 different canvases, it's huge, and it was based on a historic photograph of miners as well. And then in terms of being inspired by the materials of the era, we were able to include one of our most recent gifts to the museum. It's a beam of steel, and it is by the artist Marie Watt, and we've paired it with this historic work by Garrett Albertus Benneker, the iron worker, a very iconic, building the skyscrapers sort of image. This is from 1905, when really like skyscrapers are a new thing, so that people could make that connection that this is a beam of steel, that is used, in construction, like you see in the Benneker. And Marie Watt's work is called Skywalker Great Sunrise 6. But it's not a Star Wars reference. Marie Watt is a Seneca artist, and the Seneca are part of the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois Confederacy. And another tribe that is within that Haudenosaunee Confederacy are the Mohawk. And what she's doing with Skywalker Great Sunrise 6 is honoring the Mohawk Skywalkers, who were historically from this early era, like depicted in the Benneker. They are from Eastern New York, and they were hired to, and continue to this day to be hired to build skyscrapers. They were sort of fearless, and they were afraid of heights. And so she's honoring that history and tradition through this work. And again, we're just so lucky to have it. Now, a big thing I do in being in charge of education, I got to curate this exhibition, but my main role on the exhibition team, when we have the full curator in place, is to create interactive experiences too. We want to be able to meet people at many different levels. And one of the wonderful things about Born of Fire is that was organized, about 20 years ago. They had recorded with a group called the Newlanders. Some might be familiar with them. They're a Pittsburgh area group, like folk singers. The Newlanders had recorded all of these songs from the Big Steel era. So we were able to incorporate them in this listening lounge. So you not only can look at the art, but then you can also listen to these songs, read the lyrics, and really be able to have, a different sensory experience connected to the exhibition. And then the Steel Valley Connections section, I knew people were gonna be so, all these memories would come back, and people would have so many different connections to this history and these images that we wanted to have a place where people could share their own Steel Valley connections, and the response has been overwhelming. The last time I counted, which was maybe a month ago, and the show's been up for about 7 months, Over 1,500 people had filled out these cards, and the stories are incredible. They are so amazing. I did a program with Ron Variff and Barney Terrell from Rivers of Steel associated with this exhibition, and the first time I brought them through the show, Barney's their archivist, and he said, "What are you going to do with these cards after the exhibition is over?" And I said, "Well, we usually try to scan some, or we, transcribe some and keep a record of things like that. But then, we don't really, they'll probably end up in the dumpster after we've, saved some of them." And he said, "Well, would you want to put them in art archives?" And I said, yes, because there is information in there and stories being shared that are perfect for their mission at Rivers of Steel. So my historian heart is so happy that these cards get to live on after this exhibition ends within the archives of Rivers of Steel. Now, for those of you who've been to the Westmoreland, and within the past 10 years, I guess, you'll know the heart of our museum is our McKenna Gallery. It's a huge gallery depicted here where we can do these amazing salon hangs, and it's where traditionally we have like our scalp level landscapes and our industrial landscapes like you see here. But we have been trying something new in that space. And we're on our second version of it that goes with Steel Valley Visions. We have created an immersive experience where we took artworks from that. We worked with a company called Olo Creative Farm out of Italy. My boss is Italian. She's an American citizen now, but she is from Italy and has worked all over the world, so she knew them. They do this incredible projection mapping, including, if anybody had watched like the opening and closing ceremonies of the Cortina Milano Olympics, they were involved in that. We're really lucky to work with them. And so 3 walls of our McKenna Gallery, we are able to project and tell that story that's in the exhibition through select artworks from the show, to tell that story of the big steel era in 8 minutes. And especially when we bring the school kids, they get that history lesson in this very impactful way with sort of some light animation. We got sound effects from Rivers of Steel of the actual like steel mills, and then a nice soundtrack that was created. And it's often an emotional experience for people, the way it's presented. And even for myself, I still get choked up a little bit when I experience it. But it's amazing to see how people of all ages go into this immersive experience, and then they're going out and looking even more closely at the art, which is exactly what we wanted people to do. So again, finding all these different ways to make art very accessible and welcoming to everybody. And we will be bringing back our original immersive experience this fall by popular demand. We did one called Winter Tales. That was our very first one we had last winter of winter scenes from our collection. So we're gonna bring it back, and we have some really cool ideas and things up our sleeve that'll be coming following that in 2027. Another super fun traveling exhibition that we were able to get from some private collectors is Play Ball, the Art of George Sosnack. This is an actual baseball with incredible details on it. It's one of the coolest forms of folk art I've ever seen. And this is George Sosnack, and he was actually from Pittsburgh. He had many different career paths, but he became a minor league umpire down in Lakeland, Florida for much of his career. And he, over his lifetime from the 1950s when he started doing some of these baseballs till the 1980s, he started over, I think, 8,000 or 3,000 or something of these and completed about 800. And many of them depict the Pirates, which is super fun. So that's a really fun show that's brought in a whole new slew of visitors. And then we also have this amazing, like sort of the other end of the spectrum. This is another Native artist. She's Northern Cheyenne, named Jordan Ann Craig. She's a young artist. She'll be coming out to the museum from her current home in New Mexico to do a workshop with some young adults and also to do a talk. But she does these incredible landscapes. Landscapes are a big theme for us this year, that they're inspired by the landscape of the Southwest, but also of traditional Native art forms. Like this one is called Dyed Quills #2, Don't Quill the Vibe. And it's really inspired by quill work. And they are huge and precise and amazing. And then another show I just recently curated is a small show of another folk artist, Clementine Hunter. She's one of the most important African-American artists to come out of Louisiana. And she did these amazing, she lived from about 1886 she lived to be 101 in the late 1980s, lived on the Melrose Plantation in Natchitoches, Louisiana. And just these really incredible depictions of daily life on that plantation. This is called cotton picking. These are like 9-foot long cotton picking bags. That was one of her many jobs there on the plantation. But she just had an insatiable urge to paint and just would find any materials she could. And just a really wonderful show. I'm doing a talk about her on Sunday. If you or anyone you know might be interested. And then a very interesting installation we have right now is called Putt-a-Palooza Art-Inspired Mini Golf. Now, summers used to be our quietest time at the museum. And so we decided last year to try something new that was playful and interactive, but would really connect people with art in a new way. Last year, we created a giant art maze, and we had 5 local artists create murals within the art maze that were inspired by works hanging in the gallery. So you had to explore the maze and then go find those artworks. And it was so successful, we decided to try it with mini golf. So we have a 9-hole mini golf course in our cantilever. Each hole is inspired by a work of art. So playing mini golf is the first part, and then there's a scavenger hunt and art trivia that you have to do. And it takes you all over the museum to be able to find these different artworks. And again, we're having record attendance for that. And then another amazing feature connected to the semi-quincentennial, we are host to one of 2 Liberty Bell replicas that artists were able to adorn that you can find in every county of Pennsylvania this year. And ours is by Ligonier artist Mandy Sarofchuk, who did this incredible mosaic of all of these amazing places and cultural institutions and historic sites of Westmoreland County, the flora and fauna. And if you even look at the base, she went below the earth to show the coal seams and also the miners and that history and heritage too. So if you're planning to come out soon, this fall, we're gonna have an amazing exhibition on Ansel Adams. Continuing our celebration of the American landscape, we are so excited. We're gonna have this show for actually quite a long run, longer than we typically do with exhibitions. And a new thing we're also doing this fall is called Reflections in Glass. Some of you might be familiar, we used to do Art in Bloom, and then we brought Art in Bloom back, as you see here. In March of every year, we host Art in Bloom with around 20 different florists who are blindly assigned an artwork, and then they have to create an incredible floral design inspired by that artwork. And so we're taking that model, we're working with the Pittsburgh Glass Center, and right now we have glass artists hard at work creating original artworks that are based on an artwork they were assigned. This was just a little mock-up of one that we did to give people an idea of, it's very much like that Art in Bloom model. Now, the last thing I want to do with you all is a slow looking exercise. So I want us all to look at a piece of art together. So let's all just take a moment. If you want, you can close your eyes. It's one of my favorite things to do is look at art with people. Take a deep breath. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up an artwork. And we're going to take about at least a minute, which will feel like a very long time. And we are going to look at a work of art together. And then when I prompt you, I'll ask you some questions about it. And it's really just about how wonderful it is to stop and take some time and just what magic can unfold when you just look at a piece of art for a little while. So I think I'm gonna pull up this one. All right, so let's all look at this beautiful landscape for about a minute in silence. So who would like to share what they see? Yes.
For me, it's an American Beautiful. That song came to mind. Because it's quite, he's not boisterous like some people say that, but it tells a story about the land and there's epic gods made, they bow for fire, and that bridge that's in there that connects so many people. And I saw that little peaceful and sorry because we don't have many classes like that yet. Everything's go, go, go. Word this out, take that out, take something different. And so, why did peace?
That's so lovely. Thank you for sharing. Who else would like to share what they see? Or even how you feel looking at this piece of art? Yes.
Had a lot of nice nature that's spoiled by two bridges.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we see it in sort of different ways, right?
Yeah.
It must be the season, spring or fall, very few leaves on a tree.
Who else would like to share?
Here is the rock that you cannot see, as you imagine, because of the wandering of the river and the mist that is so quiet. You want to look more deeply into the woods. You want to look more farther behind the hills.
Yes, like wondering what is beyond the frame, right? What is beyond the frame?
That is how it seems.
Yes. Quiet, peaceful. So if you were, oh, go ahead. Yes. Yes, this is the Staruka Viaduct that is in northeastern Pennsylvania, so the other corner of the state.
Because for me, when I looked at that, I grown up here in this area. When we were all children, this was just nothing but fields. And now you can't even find us where just grass and he's building condos everywhere, all of that. So to me, when I looked at this, that bridge reminded me of the bridge that would go from Kansas City to Monroeville, that big railroad bridge. And then if you come down the hill, Sreedale, you know that little, like, Dick is it now? So to me, it was like, even though that was along the other side of the state, it is still reminiscent with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, what our Pennsylvania looked like before civilization progress, as that Ivy said was just peaceful and quiet. I've gone.
Yes, and as I said, this is Staruka Viaduct. It's by Jasper Cropsey, and it was made in 1896. So I love that you're making some personal connections, even though it's from a different spot, but there's a familiarity of this scene to us here. So if you could jump into this painting, what would you see or feel or hear? Yes.
Well, the big version of background is, I can't, because that transport address is at bottom of, right?
Correct.
So what I sort of saw is, like sky and on a peak of the dog look, right? Police staff suit early are slowly the track of the water. And as you go up, there's enough smaller bridge there, I think. Cross through it. There you see town, right? And it's time to go on to a big bridge in straight train. So it's sort of a progression.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's like almost like a progression in time, because we are at a cusp in this time in history where there's just a lot of change that's about to come or is coming, right? Yes.
I think I would hear leaves rustling.
And you might feel the breeze on your skin a little bit, that like lovely fall weather. You can almost smell it, right? That smell of fall. Would anyone else like to share? Yes.
It seemed like and darkness, and that bridge seems to share as it goes up the mountain. It's cut across the river. Where we are now, these are on the streets. Man, it's getting closer as always. Please. Listen to it. There's so precious light shining on that snow vacation. Going into the village, that as you all further, the village gets darker. And her cloud and right trees are dying. He kind of a progression of light.
Progression of life. Yes, very interesting. Yeah, there's some beautiful cloud work, and sort of wondering what the artist's intention might have been with that, and that stark tree with no leaves. So thank you all so much for looking at this piece of art with me. I hope you enjoyed this little exercise, as we call it, a slow looking exercise or visual thinking strategies. It's just a wonderful way to open up that art is whatever you make of it. We all have our opinions on art we like. But when you really get to look at it with the group together, you get to sort of understand all those different perspectives and views. And the longer you're sort of looking at it too, more things appear. And I love the idea of just the way that it's sparking your imagination in different ways and that you're making some different personal connections to it. So my time is almost up, but I do have time for maybe a question or two. If folks have any for me, I'll do my best to answer them. Yes.
Can you go back to the first or second slide? It was two dancers.
Oh, yeah. Go back. By Malvina Hoffman. It's called Bacchanal Russe. It's based on that ballet. It has wonderful movement. Glad you want to look at that one because I actually know a little bit about it. I think the most wonderful thing about working in the art museum is I know a lot about history, but I'm always learning something new. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Four days on one on the left.
Oh, by Thaddeus Mosley.
As we hustle. You said that wood?
Yes. And it's huge. I mean, it's huge. And what's really fun is Thad was a very small man. I mean, he was probably about this tall.
So it's impressionistic.
Yes, it's called Cloud. Yeah. Cloud, yeah. And Thad would often use found wood and see what it was kind of, how it was speaking to him. And it's in pieces. It gets assembled in pieces, but it has that kind of cantilever out.
Well, my impression of it is, those guys was a container we for something out, rolling low. For the
It does kind of look like a lake. Yeah. Well, what's really interesting is this piece isn't out right now, but we're going to be doing a reinstallation of our permanent collection in January. I would be interested, I unfortunately don't have we have a really cool painting that has kind of a similar like tree in it. And so when you sometimes pair it with another artwork too, of seeing if that might change your perception. But also sometimes there's just art we're not into. There's plenty of art in our collection where I'm like, I wouldn't really want to hang that on my wall. We all have our preferences and sort of get certain art more than others, right? But that's kind of the fun of it, is also it's okay to not like a piece of art. Yes. Oh, yep.
Are any of the Hetzel or other Scott level paintings on permanent display?
That's going to be what's going to come into that new reinstallation. Yes, we know people love that scalp level art. And right now, we had some like sort of long-term loan exhibitions. And then we were able to bring out the industrial landscapes for Steel Valley Visions. But just knowing that's such like a heart of our collection, those will be coming back. We do have some of our landscapes paired with some really nice loans that kind of tell the history of the American landscape and its progression from the 19th to through the 20th century, to about the mid 20th century. So we are able to kind of pair some of our works with those. But yes, those will be coming back. We were sort of waiting for the new curator. She's got like a year under her belt now. She's working on Ansel Adams and she's working on that reinstall and really getting to know our collection now. So something to look forward to.
In the spring?
It will open in February.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. Yes.
The picture on your left, kind of art would he call that?
On the left, I mean, it's of the one by Thad Mosley. Well, until recently, he was a contemporary artist until he passed away. So more modern art, abstract. Certainly wood was always his medium as well. And his process was fascinating. I was always amazed that such a tiny man would make all of his things are really huge. And one of his biggest inspirations was Alexander Calder, who made all those giant mobiles. They brought the one back to the new Pittsburgh airport, right? That's up. I got to see that the last time I was there. And the show I saw in Seattle actually paired Thad Mosley's work, which comes from the ground and is made of wood, with Alexander Calder's mobiles. And he was so tickled and amazed that he got to be in a show paired with, one of his idols in the art world. So, you really sort of can see sort of the roots coming out of his versus, those wonderful kinetic mobiles of Alexander Calder, who many of us might be familiar with. Yes.
When you say scalp, what is that?
So scalp level was like a term given to the Johnstown region, and it was connected to like clear cutting the land for like agriculture. So it was just like a term for that region. It doesn't have to do anything with Native Americans. Like it was just about they would cut certain areas to the scalp level. Like if you were shaving your head, or if you think of this.
Okay. With this, we got notices that this was going to be here.
Yeah.
There's something about Mary Cassatt.
Oh yeah, we do have a couple of Mary Cassatts and actually Mary is just left yesterday. So we have a wonderful Mary Cassatt. She was born in Pittsburgh, so Pittsburgh claims her as a Pittsburgh artist, although she lived in France for like most of her life. But she was part of that like school of Impressionists, and was like an American artist in Paris, like many, even, Malvina Hoffman, who's depicted here, spent a lot of time in Paris as well, as that was kind of the center of the art world until it started to shift to like New York City in the 20th century. And Mary Cassatt, we have our most famous painting of her is, it's a mother and two children, and it's absolutely beautiful. The reason it's on the move, Doug Evans, who's our director of collections, just packed her up and took her to Chicago because the Art Institute of Chicago is doing a massive show on Mary Cassatt, and we were so honored that our painting got to be part of that. So that's another really incredible thing about the Westmoreland is we have works of art that other places in the country and around the world, because actually Doug at one point took our Mary Cassatt to Japan because they had a big show on Mary Cassatt there as well. She's just such a major American artist. So I'm so glad you brought her up. I'm sorry I didn't bring an image of her, but she's easy to find on our website as well. But she'll be gone for a little while. We always try to put her out when she's back as people come looking for, our beautiful Mary Cassatt. And that's been in our collection for a very long time as well, from our founding director, Dr. Chu. He was able to acquire that one. Well, I think my time is up. I don't want to go over any longer. I so appreciate your participation and still looking at all your great questions. Thank you so much for listening. And please feel free to reach out to me. I can put up my email address. You all got a happenings to some of our upcoming programs. We have a whole slew of our fall and winter programs that'll be on our website in a couple of weeks as well. And we welcome you to the Westmoreland anytime. So hope to see you there. And again, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for listening. When I have some other information up here, I can come around with it to you, or if you want to come up, I can come to you, or either way, if you want any additional information about the Westmoreland. Hey.
Is there any more?
These